Hi, I'm Wally Conway from Home Pro Inspections right here in Jacksonville, Florida. I'd like to say hello and welcome to the program. For those of you I have not yet met, we are an inspection company based in Jacksonville, Florida. The program that I'm about to deliver to you, I have delivered all over the state of Florida as a staff instructor on the staff of Florida Realtors. We've taught this in numerous boards around the state of Florida, many individual companies. With the restrictions on training and teaching and talking in person, what I've done, I've taken several different programs approved by the Florida Real Estate Commission for the continuing education of real estate agents and melded them into a single group of thoughts that I could share publicly, both for home buyers, for home builders, and real estate agents who are involved in new construction sales. And the goal is just to make the process a little bit less scary for the buyer, a little bit simpler for the real estate agent, because often the real estate agent, a general real estate agent, may not have some of the familiarity with the fundamentals of construction, what all goes into building that new home. And lastly, for my friends who are home builders, I'm very empathetic to the plight of the builder. You've got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line in each and every home. You work hard to, you're focused on delivering a great product for your customer, and it's built by humans and people are frightened. So the idea is collaboratively to work together so that we've got educated agents, educated home inspectors, comfortable home buyers, and builders who are receptive to some additional insight and build a house that comes out exactly the way they wanted it to. The goal at the end of it all is this: that the new home owner moves into their new home delivered by their home builder, and there are no callbacks or complaints in that first year of ownership. And then things move on really well, because here's what we know: when there are callbacks in new construction, we have a very unhappy home buyer. That's not good for the referral base. We have a very unhappy a contractor in many cases, because it's expensive to chase little things over time and time again. So the goal is, through the inspection process of new construction, is to discover all that's discoverable while it's easy and affordable to make that little bit of a correction, rather than have things discovered at a final inspection in the days, weeks, or months after the person moves in. So that's the goal that we're working toward together. All right, let's move it forward. So a very typical home, this is a few years ago, this is in Fleming Island area of Florida. It's a complex thing to build a new home. Could you imagine if, rather than spending $200,000 or $300,000 or $500,000 for a new home, just imagine for the moment you're spending $50,000 or $100,000 for a brand new Lexus, and you order the Lexus and they bring it to your driveway, although they bring it to your driveway in pieces, and they dump in your yard all of the pieces of your brand new Lexus, and then people start showing up to assemble it. And they come from different countries and they're doing different things, and they're building the Lexus out of all the same parts right in your driveway. This is what we're asking your builder to do: dump all the parts in the yard and put it all together and have it come out near perfect. Perfection is not the expectation. The expectation needs to be the house will be built exactly as it's built on the plans and perform exactly as it's advertised, in spite of the dozens, if not hundreds, of humans and the interactions and the elements and all the challenges of building you the perfect house. So where does it all begin? It all begins with site selection and a topography map. When you first look at this, it can look like gibberish, and it's important to get comfortable that your real estate agent is working with the site agent so they can understand. In many cases, the subdivision isn't even yet, the roads aren't even there. You're getting in early, you're going to get a great deal. Being able to look at this topography will help you understand: am I at the top of the hill? Am I at the bottom of the hill? Which way is water going to run? What will I see? What will my view look like? Yes, I've got neighbors that are 200 feet away. Will I be looking over their house, or I'll be looking at their foundation? So being comfortable with the idea of topography is going to help you tremendously. It's important that that topographical map has proper grading. Now, here's an interesting thing. I haven't been involved in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of new construction inspections and new construction builds. Virtually all the homes built now in Florida are in platted subdivisions, meaning that entire scope of the drainage, of the grading, of where water is going to flow, who's going to be high, who's going to low, has all been engineered and built ahead of time, almost as though they're building a golf course. And it's important that what they've considered is that water is always flowing away from the structure of the home. If water needs to be flowing toward the structure, prior to it arriving at the structure, it needs to be diverted away, as you see in type A there, where there's actually a swale to take around it. Now, all of these things are known before your foundation is even poured. So it's critical that you understand or you're comfortable in how the house will look on that grading plan and how the water will flow, so there's not a surprise later. I've been in so many scenarios where a person, they go out, they look at the foundation, and suddenly say, oh my gracious, there's this swale in my backyard, or there's a swale on the side of the house. That is in accordance with the plan. So there should be no surprises. Drilling down a little bit further, how that individual home sets on the lot. What are the setbacks? Where are the property lines? What is your distance between your neighbors? Are there any easements on there? You can see in this example, there's a swale going virtually in all the way around the home. So we're looking at the macro at the neighborhood, and then we drill it down, it comes all the way to the micro to your individual lot. So the drainage is accounted for, elevations are accounted for, and you can be comfortable. This takes patience, this takes challenge, this takes being in the hands of a knowledgeable site agent and a general agent, if you're working one, who can help you take this vision and assure that your dream home is going to look on your dirt exactly as it should. The building code's a fascinating thing. In Florida, we have one building code, the Florida Building Code and its subsets, used all across the state. That's been in place since shortly after Hurricane Andrew. The code is a very interesting thing. People, when they're uncomfortable with something they see during the building of their house, or they're uncomfortable with something when the home is completed, they often call the office and say, well, we need you to come out and do an inspection and ensure this meets the code. That isn't how that plays out. Two very important things to understand. The building code is written essentially by the state and administered by your local building department, who interprets that the home as built meets the code at each phase along the way. It's very important to understand the code is the minimum safe standard that says the builder can proceed at this minimum level such that you will be safe and the building will perform. It doesn't really speak to the fit and finish of the finished product. That's not a code related issue. Code is basically safety, structural, quite a bit of electrical, quite candidly, but the things that usually aggravate people during watching a new construction process, which is a lot like watching heart surgery, right? If you don't watch it every day, it is scary to watch. You know, hey, they put my board in the dirt, or they didn't sweep. I understand. That's all okay. That's an individual thing, builder to builder, how they address those. But this building code is not quite what you might think. Took place, as we say, after Hurricane Andrew, began in '98, and it's updated every 3 years, and it supersedes all local codes. So it's out there, and it's watching out for you. This particular document, the Residential Construction Performance Guidelines, I love this document. Why do I love this document? We use this document at Home Pro Inspections as a part of every single new construction, phase inspection and final inspection. You might say, well, why? Shouldn't it just meet code? Yes, it should, but as we said, the code is the minimum standards. NAHB, who produces this document, National Association of Home Builders, they were looking to solve a problem. And the problem was builders were building houses in accordance with the code. The municipal building departments were saying it meets code, we're good to go. And the customer was saying, well, I'm unhappy. There's a crack in the slab. I'm unhappy with the fit of the crown molding. I'm unhappy. And I respect and understand they were unhappy. The question becomes, what is a reasonable expectation? The Residential Construction Performance Guidelines describe reasonable expectations. So what we do when we're inspecting the property, we're doing the phase inspection, we let our customer, that home buyer, know, we let the builder know that we are going to assure that the home is built as per the plans and the Residential Construction Performance Guidelines. That usually results in an interesting conversation because even though it's written by the National Association of Home Builders, and here in Jacksonville, Florida, North Florida, the Northeast Florida Builders Association, very forward-thinking group, it's not common that the builder or the builder superintendent uses this document. What we've discovered is when we introduce them to the residential performance guidelines, like, whoa, this is going to be helpful. And the idea is to bring reasonability to the situation. Hurricanes, the code applies statewide, the Florida Building Code, and in the high velocity hurricane zones, there are special restrictions. I'll show you that map here. It's the areas in blue. For those of us in North Florida, it's essentially the area east of 95. As you go further south, those requirements in the high velocity wind zone get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. What does that mean? Well, it means that a builder who's building across the state is required to meet different standards in the different municipalities. Depending on the builder, depending what municipality we're talking about, for replicatability, there are many builders who build the same house in and out of the high velocity wind zone. So these are the kind of things you can ask of your builder, ask of your site agent, and just say, what wind-borne debris region am I in, and which wind-borne debris region are we building to? It's really a rather good group of conversations. So the goal of having your private home inspector do phase inspections at each stage of construction is just this. It's to assist the builder, assist the code enforcement people to sit and say, this home matches the plans. This home, the tolerances, the imperfections are well within the National Association of Home Builders best guidelines for best practices. And we have every expectation it will be something that you'll love, you'll enjoy, and it'll perform exactly as the builder intended and exactly as you paid for. Let's take a look at foundations. Three fundamental choices we see across Florida. Very rare to see basements. We can see a stem wall and then a slab poured on top of that. We can see a crawl space as in the middle, which is not as common as it once was. It was ubiquitous across Florida at one point, and then slab construction became more popular. What we see more often than not in most areas around the state now is a monolithic pour. What does that mean? It means the dirt is prepared, a footer is dug, the rebar and the other pieces are all put in place, excuse me, and the concrete guy comes and he just pours away. This is an example of a monolithic pour. The monolithic pour is very stable, it's a very affordable way to do work. The downside of the monolithic pour is it's very difficult to add height. So the grade needs to be all the way right, the lot selection needs to be appropriate for a monolithic pour, and this is what it looks like. The first phase of a new construction inspection is this phase that you're seeing right here. We call this phase one. It's the pre-slab, before the concrete is poured. What are we looking for? It is the last opportunity to assure that what's going to be poured will match the plans. We can see that the rebar is appropriately in place, the plumbing, any electrical, any other piping, everything is exactly as it should be in the electrical plan, in the slab plan, in the plumbing plan. It's the last chance to take a peek. And some of this is just simple nuance. This is an example of that outside footer where the rebar, the metal reinforcing bars, have been laid on top of a pipe. It's not supposed to be that way. The little pieces of wire you see laying beneath it, those are called chairs. That was intended for that rebar to sit on top of, not to be sitting on the pipe. What's the consequence of that? Very often this will reside in breaking the pipe during the pour, because the people are walking around, they're stomping around, they're pouring concrete. We can break pipe. We can depress the pipe. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. So this is a very simple piece of nuance, the type of things we're looking at. After the slab is poured, one of the most common calls we get here at Home Pro Inspection is, Wally, I just bought a home. It's a new build. It's the builder of the year. Everything is, I love the builder, but there's a crack in my slab. And the question becomes, okay, there's a crack in the slab. Is it of any structural consequence? Is it reasonable? I've had hundreds and hundreds of home buyers look out and see these cracks right after the pour or during the construction as it was moving along, and they're petrified There is no reason to be petrified. There are standards to look at these cracks. In the NHB guidelines, it says how wide a crack can be, how over what length it can be, any displacement vertical in the crack. If it meets that standard, there's no reasonable cause for concern. The builder then will address that crack in a cosmetic way so that it doesn't show in any finished flooring, but as it relates to the structure, not typically a problem. Exterior walls, the most common form of exterior walls we see here in Florida are masonry walls, meaning all concrete block, or a wood frame. It is relatively rare to see a solid block wall. It is virtually always a brick veneer. That brick veneer can be a veneer covering a block wall, very durable, very expensive, or a wood frame. Also perfectly acceptable, less expensive. Those are the basic fundamentals that you'll see. One of the reasons we're so adamant about doing that first phase inspection, that pre-slab, is to assure that the dimensions on the slab are perfect. Excuse me. Prior to the pour, your inspector will measure every imaginable dimension, where the footers are, where the pipes are, the perimeter of the slab, to assure that it is going to be poured exactly as designed. When it's not, which is the case in this picture, you can see that they have framed the home such that it actually extends out over the slab. You ask, why in the world did they do that? Can't they see that it's going out over the edge of the slab? The answer is really quite simple. In virtually every new construction project in Florida, there are pre-engineered wooden trusses that make up the floor system, if there's 2 stories, and make up the roof and sheathing system. Those trusses must sit exactly in the proper position on the frame. If the frame sits exactly on the slab as poured and it's not poured right, the trusses will not sit in the right place. They won't be strapped in the right place. So there's a decision made at times to allow some amount of overhang. Is there an acceptable amount of overhang or underhang? Yes, there is. It's in the NAHB performance guidelines. What's the consequence if it sticks out too far? As you can see in this particular photo, there's a gap. There's the risk of nails hitting pipes because things don't line up right. The pipe is too close to the exterior of the footer. In many cases, we'll actually see it penetrate and it just doesn't look or feel good. So that's a very simple example of the kinds of things we discover on a weekly basis. We want to discover them, not during framing, which is where this discovery was made. We want to make that discovery during that phase 1 inspection so it can be readily corrected before the pour at very little cost or inconvenience to the builder. During that framing inspections, one of the things we're looking at is how all of the seams are taped and sealed. In this particular case, here is who knows how these things happen, but this is actually going to catch water. It's intended that that sheathing and the tapes and other water membranes back there shed water so that they can roll out through weep screeds or through weep holes or wherever they're going. This will actually retain water and potentially drive it back through the window. So one of the things we're really paying great attention to is how the sealing and mounting of windows and doors and penetrations is. Another thing that should be occurring during these phase inspections, this was during a framing inspection, is a thermal imaging infrared scan. This will allow your inspector to determine, is anything leaking? And this is the time we want to discover a leak, is during the framing. There's no drywall, there's no insulation, there's just windows, siding, and a roof. If it's leaking when there's only windows and siding and a roof, it's going to be leaking when there's insulation and drywall. The challenge becomes, is it detectable? By using the infrared, and in particular using the infrared during this phase in the framing, we're able to see the smallest leaks. We're able to pinpoint precisely where they come from, provide that documentation to your builder so they can go, ooh, I'm so grateful that you've discovered that now. We'll solve it right away, rather than days or weeks or months after there's insulation and drywall and carpet and you've moved in and it's a big problem. So how do these things happen? They happen in very simple ways by looking at detail during the framing inspection. This is actually a picture of a story balcony. The raw wood there, the OSB product, is intended to be the balcony floor. And you can see we're able to stick pens down inside the flashing that was intended to route water and protect this finished balcony from water. This is what it looked like stepping out onto the balcony. They attempted to caulk it. It didn't go there. Water can get in there, and water gets in there, and when water gets in there, bad things happen. We get mold, we get rot, we get other bad things. There is no way to discover this once the finished siding is on. It's invisible. So we want to be there early in the phase, much like the slab inspection, right? We want to be there prior to the pour, so what we know is everything right is before it's covered up. On the framing inspection, we want to be there before the insulation, the drywall, and all the other things are in place, because that's when it's easy to discover a problem, and that's when it's easy to correct the problem so that that next consequence doesn't occur. Insulation is a really interesting thing. We get a lot of insulation questions. People talking about, what about spray foam? What about radiant barriers? Here's what's important, that the insulation is exactly as it was planned. Now, is one better than the other? Yes, they are. Is there a cost differential? Yes, there is. But what's most important, that whatever you choose with your builder, or whatever your builder is offering as a piece of that model, that insulation is installed exactly as it was intended so that it can perform. Once again, we bring the infrared camera back to the scene. This is a ceiling, and I doubt many of you are thermographers, but you can readily see there's something different in that ceiling. And those are holidays, skips, and misses with the blown-in insulation. It is honest to say that your local building official, when the insulation is blown in, does not traverse that insulation in the attic. That is not what they're called to do. It's not what they're able to do. Using the infrared camera, we can know instantly where the misses are. We can provide that documentation to the builder. At that point, it's very simple for the builder to invite the subcontractor, the insulation subcontractor, back out. They can solve this because we're giving them an exact area of where it's thin or where it's missing. They can do this precisely and very rapidly and affordably. We've also discovered with builders that we work with regularly, when the subcontractors realize that somebody's coming after, not coming after them, following after them with infrared cameras and other things, they don't like coming back. It's expensive for them to come back. It wastes time for them to come back. They're more inclined to spend that little extra time, little extra attention to do it right the first time. What is this thing called R value? Some builders offer different levels of insulation. R value indicates the resistance to flow. What is the optimal? In Jacksonville, Florida, the Department of Energy recommends R38. R38 for this region is where the savings in electricity and the comfort matches the cost to perform. What does the code say? The code says R31. What should you expect in your home? You should expect whatever that you ask for or whatever the builder offered. If they said it's built to code R31, then that's what it is. If you'd like to have R38, which is optimal, you should reasonably expect to pay that differential. Some builders are very receptive to that, some not at all, but these are conversations you have up front, so you choose the builder who's appropriate to build you what it is you think you want. This is an interesting bugaboo of mine. When you read the instructions of any bathroom exhaust fan, they all recommend that that duct discharges directly to the exterior in as straight and short of line as possible, so you get really good flow coming out of the bathroom, moisture as well as odor. Very, very common to see all these bends and kinks. Now, this is a situation where somebody just didn't feel like trimming the duct so they could have a straight run. They put it in the perfect place. They did duct it to the exterior, and then they put this big bend in it. And if you're a NASCAR fan, you know they slow down at the bends, right? So we don't want to slow the air. When we slow air, we risk condensation and other difficulties, and just the general speed with which the fan performs in clearing out the air in your bathroom or your kitchen works the same way. The other thing you're seeing in here is a spray-on radiant barrier. Spray-on radiant barrier, some builders offer this as an upgrade. Some do it on every single home. Those that do it on every single home, very often the sheathing, that decking material, has the radiant barrier already on it. It's a perfect way to do it. Why and what is the purpose of this radiant barrier? The radiant barrier will reduce the attic temperature by 30 to 40 degrees. Why is that important? Because if we reduce the attic temperature, we also reduce the ceiling temperature. When we reduce the ceiling temperature, your home is more comfortable and your home operates more efficiently. The other reason it's a value to you to cool the attic using a radiant barrier as an example is your ductwork lives in the attic. So your ductwork for your HVAC system, your heat pump, is moving air through the attic, and that air in there is usually 50 to 60 degrees approximately. And if the attic is 150 degrees, that's a 100-degree differential back to insulation. I shared with you that the code requirement for our area is R31 in ceiling insulation. That makes sense. R38 is optimal. What is the insulation value of flexible ductwork? 6. That's interesting. So there's a 100-degree temperature change in your attic, and the insulation value is 6. One of the reasons it costs so much to insulate or to cool homes in Florida is we run the ductwork through the attic where it picks up heat. Not good. All right, most common roof styles. The things we see most often in Florida is a gable roof, which has become way less common due to various wind restrictions and insurance regulations. The hip roof there in the center, which is pretty much the most common, or a Boston hip, we don't see that all that much. The hip has become pretty much the norm, and there is some gabling. Why does this matter to you? You may have one preference or another for appearance, and there are also implications for the wind loading, which also impacts your insurance. So it's reasonable to get insurance quotes on different models. These are some other terms, and terminology is really important. The reason terminology is so important is because when you as the homeowner or you as a real estate agent are communicating with the builder, it's very helpful to them if your terminology matches basic construction terminology. When you say the whatsamajigger near the umpty-frats looks a little messed up, they can't act on that because they don't understand that. So basic terminology will help you. And there's how that whole roof system comes together. Mind you, every single detail in the home is on the plans, from the foundation to the finish, how each truss sits in place. Everything is in detail. Now, the municipal code official, their responsibility is to assure that it does meet the code, but it is also honest to say they're not out there for 1 or 2 or 3 hours on a single home going detail by detail by detail by detail to assure compliance. They're doing a fine job at what they're expected to do, but we can do more and do better. Roof systems come together in many ways. These are the trusses. These are engineered. They're engineered for performance, meaning wind load and structural loads. They're also engineered for appearance, so your finished roof looks the way you want. And they're also engineered for efficiency. The goal is to use as little wood as possible and get as strong as possible and get the performance they need in a cost-effective way. It also, it just comes out really nice. Here's an example of a tie down during your phase inspection, during the framing phase inspection. Your inspector will be looking at every single clip, every single tie down. Is there a nail in every slot? Is that particular clip installed precisely in accordance with the manufacturer's instruction? And if they're not, we'll document exactly which clips, exactly where they're located, so the builder can have the framer come back and do those appropriate things. It's really quite simple. It's just a matter of having the expertise to look and the time to take the look. And we take that time. That is why you're paying a private inspector as opposed to relying on the municipal people who do a wonderful job. They don't have the time to go clip by clip by clip by clip, get on the ladder and do all those things. That's not part of their charter. Also, there's a little bit of mold on this particular truss. How did that get there? It got there because it was left in the dirt. Should it have been left in the dirt? No. It should actually be out of the dirt and covered is what the rules would say. Rarely does it happen. But what we want to be sure is that if it is got dirt or mold on it, or sometimes we've even been in situations where they got infested with termites, we want to discover that in a timely manner so it can be cleaned. If there's damage, it can be repaired before it gets covered up. Because once it's covered up, your house is potentially weakened forever. It's potentially contaminated forever, and it's very difficult to discover and even more difficult to correct. Framing methods, you'll be exposed to many different framing methods. What we see most commonly is at the bottom now in new construction, it's trusses, and most of the walls in between the house are non-load bearing walls. In the days of old, with an individually stick-built framed home, many of the interior walls are in fact structural. There are relatively few that happen now, but we can help you understand that. Plumbing, HVAC, and electrical, we've got to be sure during that pre-slab that everything is where it's supposed to be. In particular, the sewer lines need to be sloped in a proper manner so that the poo can flow downhill and not sit there and ferment. That's not a good thing. We're looking at the venting. We're looking at the water coming in. We're looking at the wire. This is the pre-drywall, right? After the slab, we look at everything under the slab, framing, then pre-drywall. Pre-drywall is the last opportunity to see the insulation, to see the wiring, to see the plumbing, to see any computers or other lines or whatever's going inside those walls. There's one last chance to see it, and that is pre-drywall, which means there's one last chance to cost effectively and simply get things in the right place and moving in the right direction, no breaks, no problems. Very important. The HVAC system, we're looking to assure that the ductwork is all right, as per the plan. No cuts, no bends, no problems. It's all the way right. It's sealed, no disconnects. Almost everything that you could ever invent to be wrong over these thousands of new home inspections we've done, we've discovered wrong. That doesn't mean the builder's a bad guy. It just means humans, sometimes things happen, or one trade comes in and messes up the work from the guy before him. It just happens. Our goal is to work collaboratively with the builder, the site agent, the general real estate agent, and you, the homeowner, to assure that we discover all that's discoverable so your builder can correct it in a timely manner. Plumbing system, we're looking everywhere, every joint, everywhere, to assure that things are going to work the way they should. We want to be sure that traps are installed, that they're mounted in the right height with the comparative to how they drain and where the garbage disposer is. And all these things work together, the subtle nuance. It seems so simple, and it is so simple. It's just a matter of bringing the expertise and the time to go detail by detail by detail. One of the things we're always observing is this particular gauge. What happens is the water lines in your home, the supply lines, are pressurized shortly after they're installed. The reason they're pressurized, and this gauge is there, is so the contractor, the builder, will know in an instant if they've got a leak. Because if they've got a leak under a slab, the sooner they can discover it, the better off they are. In particular, right before the slab is poured and right after the slab is poured. We never want to have a leak. This will be there throughout the entirety of construction to determine, did anybody shoot a nail through a pipe? Has anything gone wrong? That's what they're looking for with those. We're looking at the HVAC, how the ductwork goes, the placement of the compressor and the outside units. We see this all too commonly. Whereas they're pouring the slab, they pour this slab or this base for your HVAC system, but it may have occurred before the finished grading, or we're getting a lot of rain and it's cascading off the roof and there's not yet any gutters or shrubbery, and we start eroding under it, and then they come back and throw sod under it. We want to discover this in a timely manner, certainly before the yard work is done, ideally before the grading is done, so this can be corrected. If need be, they can pour a new one. It's not difficult or expensive, but we don't want to be in a situation where your system later tilts. If it tilts, it doesn't perform correctly. That's how it lubricates itself. Electrical, we're looking at every single connection, every single length of wire, every outlet, every switch, every fixture. When we're doing the final, we're looking everywhere for any indication of anything that will not function correctly or not be safe for you. Here's an example of how bad you can feel when you go out to look at your home door in the framing phase and you discover they've jackhammered this giant hole in your slab. We see this happening with plumbing that's improperly located. We see it with electrical pipes that are improperly located. Different other things that were supposed to occur under the slab and they don't, and they have to bore it out. This is, in fairness, this is not a huge problem. They'll fill it back up, they'll seal it back up. virtually never is of any structural consequence. It just looks and feels terrible. We want to avoid that by doing this pre-slab inspection so we know that everything is in the right spot. The finish work. Gosh, the finish work is the toughest of all because we all have a cosmetic eye. We all know what our individual expectation is, but everyone has a different expectation of the finish. From the point of view of your private independent home inspector who's coming out to look at that finished or final inspection with you, our goal is to ensure that the finish is as described in the specifications that you agreed to. Nuance of color, sorry, can't help you there. But is it right and correct? And it goes back to those NAHB standards. I beg you to get a copy of those. If you're a builder, a superintendent, or a contractor, you've got to have this document. It will make your life better. If you are purchasing a new home, I beg you, get a copy of these documents. It will help you understand what's reasonable and what you should reasonably expect. It will also be a talking point that if your expectations are finer, more refined, a higher level of expectations than the National Association of Home Builders, you need to have that conversation with your builder before you sign the contract. Because once you've signed the contract, you've agreed to a standard of performance, and you say, no, that's not what I was expecting. And the thing that drives the builders the craziest is, I built homes in Wisconsin and we never did it that way. Well, we're not in Wisconsin and you're not building the home. If you purchase the home in accordance with the plans and specifications, that's what you should expect to get. By familiarizing yourself with the fundamentals of those plans and the types of things we're looking at and the NHB guidelines, it will put you in a very good position to determine, am I choosing the builder that's right for me? Are my requests reasonable? And honestly, it also helps the builder decide, is this a customer I want to do business with? Because when it's miserable for a home buyer, it's also miserable for the home builder. And when it's miserable for the buyer and builder, it's also miserable for the agents involved. And at Home Pro Inspections, we're in the business of avoiding misery. Please. Very often we're called when people are already miserable and we're trying to help mediate the way through that. But it's really nice to be involved from pre-slab to framing, pre-drywall, final inspection, and then come back at the 11 months to affirm that the house is performing as it should, that everything is in great place. If there's any homeowner things that need to be done, we'll share those with you. If there's things that would reasonably be a builder's expectation, we'll share those with you also. And the builder ends up with one list, nicely documented, of anything they need to consider addressing. It makes it better for everybody. This is just an example of something that drove me nuts. Coincidental, this is in the same house that the other pictures that I've shown you. They're all of the same home. There's imperfections in one very nice home. I think that home was about 4,000 square feet. It was on the river. Home and lot were well in excess of $1 million, and there's still imperfections. Did it mean that it didn't have a happy ending? It did have a happy ending. They worked through it together. But this is an example of drywall screws holding on an exterior door. Not good. This was easy to solve. Everybody was happy in the end. But it's the kind of things that are so easy to go unobserved, right? They're unobserved until, you know, a hurricane comes through and your door blows off. Like, how the hell did that happen? And it turned out it's held on with drywall screws. It's not what it's intended. So we try to avoid those things. If you've got questions or I can help you in any way, I would encourage you, reach out to me directly. Our website, gohomepro.com, gohomepro.com, has a tremendous amount of information. We go through the entire phase of new construction, the 11th month warranty, and many other things. We've built the site to be a resource for you to help you make good decisions with your builder, make good decisions for pre-existing homes. Just make good decisions. And if one of those groups of decisions is you choose to reach out to us and trust us with your inspections, we'd be very grateful for that. I appreciate your time. I hope you have just a wonderful and glorious day. And any way that I can help you, if I can help you in a conversation with your builder, help you in a conversation with your site agent, we're here. We have multiple former contractors on staff. We have very good relationships with many of the contractors. We have very good relationships with several of the local building departments, and we're absolutely committed to serving you in every way that we can. And thank you so much.